Hello again, ladies and gentlemen, and other assorted gender assignations. Welcome back to the Bored to Death Bingecast, where we take TV shows and movies and binge them in easily digestible chunks. I am Jay Winger, being joined again by
Chris.
And we're returning for the second half of Netflix's Castlevania Season 2. Definitely enjoyed the last 4 episodes we watched, introducing the generals in Dracula's army, Godbrand and Carmilla.
It's funny because if you notice Season 1, after, the first episode when it shows Dracula, destroying the town where his wife
Targovishta, yeah.
Yeah, did you notice that the majority of Season 1 was, I guess, developing stuff for, Belmont,
Sypha and Alucard.
Alucard, how it was bringing them in, it was developing them a little bit. In Season 2, it develops more of
the villains,
the 3 of them.
the antagonists.
Yeah, basically. Of the villains, but it also kind of establishes a little bit of a relationship, not really a rival relationship between Alucard and Trevor.
Yeah, they're. I think I described them as vitriolic best buds. They're friends, but they shit talk each other all the time. Alucard is just doing it constantly when they're going into the Belmont hold.
I think that's just the thing that Alucards like to do, because Alucard from Helsing does it also to Ceres Victoria a lot.
Well, yeah, I think. Well, I don't know the timeline, but I'm fairly certain that Helsing was probably drew some inspiration from the Castlevania games.
Probably.
It's one of those things we can always look up later and talk about in the second half.
Yeah.
But it did also spend some time developing the antagonist characters. Carmilla got a lot. Came out of nowhere and's gotten some significant development. She's scheming and clearly is hoping to undermine Dracula and take over the army.
You know who I originally thought who she was supposed to be, or at least represent, and I can't remember the chick's name, but the vampire chick who bathed in the blood of virgin women because she thought that it kept her skin looking young and smooth.
Bathory.
Elizabeth Bathory.
Yeah.
I thought that's who she was supposed to be until I saw her.
Until Carmilla came.
Until Carmilla came up, I was like, oh, okay, never mind then.
And when I specifically mentioned that she came from a vampire story that predates Bram Stoker.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they spent some time developing her. Godbrand was a very entertaining character, as you might expect for a character voiced by Peter Stormare.
Yes.
But then we also had Isaac and Hector.
Oh, by the way, I looked into those two a little bit more. Isaac is the hero character for one of the Castlevania games, the one that I told you that he's in, and Hector is the villain. So in this, they're basically being, I wouldn't say being forced to work together, but Dracula has employed them, because I think the game that they're in, I don't think Dracula is actually in it.
I wouldn't count it as a proper Castlevania game then, because a Castlevania game that doesn't have Dracula isn't a Castlevania game.
Well, Castlevania 2, Simon's Curse or Quest, whatever. Simon's Quest. That's what it was. That game is you playing as Simon, and Simon is cursed from killing Dracula in the first game, so he has to go around and find the pieces of Dracula, put them back together, bring him back to his castle, and then kill him again to lift the curse.
In that case, it still counts, because Dracula is still in it.
Yeah.
But this one you're describing with Hector and Isaac, if there's no Dracula, then it's not a Castlevania game.
No, but it still takes place in the same... Well, I don't know. I don't know how many of them branched off and how many of them stayed the course. It's like Final Fantasy. I just lost track after a while.
Well, and the Final Fantasy games are each individual continuities, whereas the Castlevania games feel like they're supposed to all be in a similar continuity to one another. But regardless, when we left off in the series, our hero trio were still in the Belmont hold looking for anything they can find that will help them kill Dracula. And Trevor had found the Morning Star whip while he was there.
You totally passed up on that throwing cross though.
That we spotted in one of the shelves right next to the Medusa head.
Yeah, it's funny because you spotted the Medusa head, but I recognized the cross that was sitting right next to it.
And Alucard was getting all somber and everything because he was looking at a trophy case essentially filled with vampire skulls.
One of them was a kid.
Yeah. And meanwhile with the antagonists, we gotten some backstory explanation with Hector and Isaac. Hector is a necromancer, essentially.
Yeah.
And can bring dead things back to life. He prefers animals because he doesn't like people, but he's not above using human corpses to turn into monsters. And they've been hinting very strongly that they're going to do that with the bishop's body. It's been sitting there on the pile. We keep seeing it.
I can't remember. It's like I said. It's been a while since I watched season 2 because I watched season 2 when they when it first debuted on Netflix. So I don't remember. I know that there was a huge fight between Trevor, Alucard, and Dracula.
Well, naturally.
Yeah.
But there's still plenty going on there. Isaac just doesn't like people in general because he basically saw some of the worst of them
through his parents, right?
Through his adopted master, the priest that whipped him all the time.
Oh yeah.
And then Chris is pointing at the TV, which has got like Netflix screensaver on right now, and we came up with One Piece. It's like, no, we are not binging through One Piece. That will take way too long.
I'm binging
maybe after we're done with
Gundam.
The whole damn saga, we can discuss it. But until then, since the whole damn saga is going to take a while, then we've got time.
Oh yeah.
To figure out what we're going to do after that long runner. But regardless. And spoilers for those who haven't seen it yet, Godbrand got killed by Isaac when he found out that Godbrand was plotting to basically overthrow Dracula.
Did you think that was going to happen? Like,
I knew that Godbrand was going to die at some point.
But who did you think was going to do it?
Honestly, Carmilla. You
thought Carmilla was going to?
It was either Carmilla or Dracula. Like, either Carmilla was going to come to the whole "you've outlived your usefulness" thing, or Dracula was going to get pissed off with Godbrand's uppity and mouthing off nature and just straight up kill him.
And because of the fact that he decided to go and raid an entire village with a group of vampires
against his explicit orders. So I honestly thought it was going to be one of those two. I wasn't expecting it to be Isaac, but that was a good place to sort of leave off, to leave me intrigued, to be like, okay, let's go. Let's see what's going on. I've been wanting to watch the rest of this. Who knows? Maybe when we decide to do season 3, we'll just try to figure out someday and just binge the whole thing at once. It's a thing, but it's 10 episodes. That's going to be like 5 hours.
Yeah, that would have to be on either one of my days off or like the day before my day off to do that.
In which case, we might as well just do a 2-part binge, and just do 5 and 5. But regardless, we've rambled on for almost 9 minutes now, so let's go ahead and pause this, and we'll be back after the binge. And we're back following the binge of the rest of season 2 of Castlevania, and definitely worth waiting for that final battle between the heroes and Dracula. But I mean, it was a good rounding out the season and leaving enough dangling threads for season 3, which we'll binge at some point in the near future.
That could be next month's project.
Next month's, yeah, because we've got enough. I know we've got to get back into Gundam. I'm sure Sam will want to continue doing My Hero Academia at some point. But regardless, this was definitely an interesting one. The plan that they eventually came up with in the Belmont Hold was Sypha found a found that spell.
It was a holding spell for Dracula's castle.
Right, and that would basically allow her to teleport it wherever she wanted and then lock it in place.
By locking it just means destroying the engine.
Yeah, basically melting the stuff that made it move.
Yeah.
And then afterwards she insisted that she didn't break it.
And both Alucard
and Trevor were like, so we're in agreement, she broke it. We also found out what Carmilla's whole scheme was as well, including what they were saving the bishop's body for, which was once she got them to agree to make a move on Brela to stop the people of Wallachia from fleeing over the border kind of thing. She basically got Dracula's army to mobilize and start crossing the bridge into Brela. But then, while that was going on, she and Hector got the zombified priest to bless the river, basically turning it into holy water. And then Carmilla had her own hidden forces destroy the bridge while the vampires were on it and drop them all into a big flowing river of holy water.
And it's funny because I described her army, like the armor that they were wearing, looks like elvish armor from Lord of the Rings.
Oh yeah, I definitely got the same vibe. Apparently that's how Styrian armor looks, because she's the province or land or whatever she's from is called Styria. Which is that Skyrim looking place that we saw in her flashback episode.
It is.
And then that led to a fight between Carmilla's forces and Dracula's forces and his surviving generals. And then the castle gets teleported away, but not without a fight. And the fight basically wrecks Brela in the process as it's just teleporting all over the place.
At one point in time, it teleports into the Holy River.
Makes basically a holy tsunami.
And while it's in there, it starts to turn and starts knocking over stuff. Meanwhile, Carmilla and Hector are jumping around from one place to another, trying to avoid getting hit by the castle and trying to avoid the water.
Well, she's trying to avoid the water. Hector would probably just get washed downstream for a bit and probably be okay.
Which she doesn't want to happen because she
has plans, and we find out what those plans are in the last episode of the season. We'll get to that. But then it arrives at the Belmont Hold, which has just been attacked by some of the Night Horde, allowing Trevor to get some fighting in with the new Morningstar whip of his, which blows things up.
It's like the tip of the whip. By the way, the whip is made of a chain instead of the usual leather, and everything I guess demonic or vampiric, the tip hits explodes.
And we see him make very good use of that. First against the Night Horde, and although at one point he loses it, ends up stealing the spear that one of the Night Horde had, breaks it in half, and then it's just like, I've got a stick.
Basically, what he does.
It's funny. It's just the delivery of that whole thing. I've got a stick.
What was the one that looked like a crow or a raven, and all he's doing is smacking it.
No, I don't know. It was the bat-looking one that after he killed the raven one, that he was like, I've got a stick.
Yeah, but no, it's the raven one where he's basically
just beating on it,
just smacking it around, and it's wearing this like plague doctor-ish mask, but it looks like it's made out of bone. And as he's smacking at
it's
it,
just like
yeah, it's not. It looks like it's just inconveniencing the damn thing, and then he starts to notice that a part of the mask has been broken off, and he sees like a human face underneath it, but without the skin.
Yeah, zombie human, basically.
Yeah. So once he finally breaks that away completely, he takes it, stabs it in the what was it? It was like underneath its jaw.
Yeah, basically.
Through the top of its head, and it falls over. Then he fights this werebat.
Yeah. There was a whole bunch of things he fought. There was the giant like goat demon thing. Then there was the...
Oh, come on, dude. You can't tell me that didn't look like a minotaur to you.
Yeah, okay. It was a minotaur. Then there was the blind one with the horns, with the spear.
Yeah.
Then there was the raven. Then there was the fire drake before the raven popped in, but he blew that up.
He blew it up and caused a massive explosion that I think killed like 2 other ones that we didn't really see.
They were literally just there to be fodder.
Yeah, and then after that, that's when he fights the blindfolded one, and then the raven one, and then the werebat.
Yep. And the werebat, finally he kills that, and by this point the castle has arrived, thanks to Sypha's spell.
And Alucard's like, "Did you park it right on top of us?" She goes, "Yeah, oops."
And she was like, "Yes. Oh, right."
This place is only being held up by
dirt
wood
and dirt. But then they arrive in the foyer of the castle, where there's a battle going on between the Styrian vampires and the Wallachian vampires.
But the second they walk
the second they walk in, like, they see a Belmont and they see Alucard, they're all like, "Oh fuck!"
And then they all stop, and then they join forces to attack the 3 of them, and proceed to get their asses handed to them.
It was a curb stomp battle. It was a great curb stomp battle too, and I liked how Sypha made use of her magic, the fire spells, but the ice especially.
Yeah, when she killed the Asian vampire, I'm not even going to try to figure out what area she's from. Either Chinese or Japanese. This is one of those.
We'll go with Chinese.
She can. This is the one that can turn into like a mist or a fog bank or whatever.
And she just flash freezes it.
Yeah, she flash freezes it, and then does like another thing with her. Oh, by the way, she's throwing the Doctor Strange hand signals. I
prefer to think of it as the power of rock compels you, because it does look like she's throwing up the horns all the time.
And causes that to shatter. She kills it was the Indian one.
Yeah. By
causing a thin wall of ice to form in front of which he's just doing all these backflips.
He jumps up on top of it, and then she just turns it on its end and just...
Well, she waits for him to get close enough because he's running along the edge of it like a tightrope, and waits until he gets close enough, and then flips it over where it slices him in half.
I got 13 Ghosts vibes.
Oh yeah, where Matthew Lillard got sliced in half.
Yeah, we didn't see what happened to the vampire in this case, but we know it's dead because it got cut in half. But it's as soon as I saw it, I was like, I got 13 Ghost vibes with that. Whole thing.
And then she ends up killing the Russian-looking vampire by setting him on fire.
Yeah. Although that one was pretty good. He got trapped by the whip, smacked down to the ground by Alucard, and then Sypha's just right there and just point blank fired to the face.
She cooks him.
Yep. But then comes the fight
between the
trio and Dracula,
where it's like the saying like what Christopher Titus said the first time he challenged his dad to a fist fight. Turns out Dad's not lazy; he was just resting up.
Yeah, it was a curb stomp battle in Dracula's favor for most of the frickin' battle.
Yeah.
The only reason he gets defeated is because he finally comes to his senses, calms down, starts weeping about the fact that he's trying to kill his own his son.
He doesn't start to do that till they end up in Alucard's childhood bedroom, and he's looking around. He sees everything in there. He
sees the portrait of the family, him and Lisa and baby Alucard.
And he's sitting there. He's like, Lisa, the one gift that you gave me, and I'm killing him. And he's sitting there crying. Alucard, meanwhile, breaks like a piece of
the bedpost
off, walks on over to him, and it looks like he's going to hug him first, but then he just shanks him in the heart.
Yeah, but the fight before that point was awesome stuff. I mean, they're doing their damnedest to try to kill him, and he's treating it like he's barely inconvenienced by all of it.
Well, I mean, with as powerful as what he is.
This is true, but it was still just like... I think you compared it while we were watching it to like a DBZ fight.
Well, no, I compared it to the fight in Empire Strikes Back.
Oh, that's right, Luke and Vader.
Luke and Vader, where Luke is trying his damnedest, but Vader's just whooping his ass.
Yeah, Vader's just like, this is what I do for a living, boy.
He's like, I've been doing this longer than you. I fought in the Clone Wars. I think I can do this better. But whereas in Dracula's case, before he became Dracula,
he was a fucking warlord.
Yeah,
he was he went and fought in the Crusades practically.
And he also, you get this little like flashback of like a story that he's telling where he,
when he talks about like some village, the merchants in it had offended him somehow.
But he didn't say how. He was just like, well, they offended me.
But he let the women and children get out because he knew that the merchants would stay behind to try to gather their valuables. And then he just shows up and kills only the people that offended him.
Including one archer who shot at him.
Well, and that was literally just because you tried to kill me, so now I must kill you.
Where I'm pretty sure that unless the guy knew to hit him in the heart, slightly inconvenienced him.
Yeah,
that's all that would have done.
It was great, but while I was seeing it, I got vibes from Man of Steel. The fight between Zod and his forces and Clark, and both the fight in Smallville, and then of course the later fight in Metropolis.
Yeah, where they trashed everything, because that's basically
again, as I said while we were watching it, Smallville got trashed too.
Smallville lost a gas station and a train.
And a whole lot else besides, but yeah, Metropolis got pretty fucked up too.
It was
just the way Alucard and Dracula were just like flash stepping all over the place, just smacking each other around and barely getting bruised by.
Well, you have like an uber powerful vampire, and then you have him fighting his half vampire son. And they're basically going around from like one room to another, trashing everything. They go into the engine room, which is melting now, which I think is because of that giant fireball that Dracula created.
I don't know that was the case. It was already on fire while Sypha was trying to move it, because the castle's engine was pushing back against the spell. Yeah,
it was fighting against her, and
she won.
She won against the freaking magic engine.
The magic engine, which every time I saw it, I did it while we were binging the first half. I did it again here. I was just, every time I saw it, I was just like, "You opened the box, we came."
Oh yeah, it looks like the Lament configuration from
Hellraiser,
but instead of it being a
cube,
box,
it's like a dodecahedron or something.
What's the name of that dice from
D20?
Yeah, like a D20 dice. That's what it essentially looks like. Like at this point,
a dodecahedron,
Like at this point, like at one point in time, I was
just like, roll for initiative.
Roll for initiative. All right, if I roll a 20, the castle will go wherever I wanted to go. If it rolls a 1, then...
And you rolled a natural 1, which means that it's going to teleport all over the place, destroy a city, and kill a lot of your forces in the process. And now it's trapped wherever it is because the engine room has melted.
Now we've also got to say what happened to Isaac.
Hector and Carmilla, as we said, were in Brela when the castle started teleporting all over the place. Isaac fell back with Dracula to his study and was prepared to fight to the death to protect him. And Dracula's like, "You would do that for me?" He's like, "It's not worth it." So this is my last gift to you, and just throws him through his magic mirror into the desert.
I think he just threw him back to his home country.
Probably.
Where Isaac was just like, "No, Dracula!" And he tried running back, it closed, and now he's stuck there.
Because Dracula, basically, we already saw this, but he does have the capacity to show compassion and care about people, but it's just, he's so weary from everything that's happened. The years of loneliness before he met Lisa, and then having that normality for a couple of decades before she returns to the world so she can try to help people with what he's taught her. He goes and travels the world, and then he comes back and finds out, she's dead. They're about to burn her at the stake, and that's when he's basically like, you know what? Fuck everybody. But that's been a theme throughout season 2 with the vampire generals and Hector and Isaac, is that they recognize that he doesn't care anymore. That he's not providing them with a clear vision of anything.
It's like, so what are you planning on doing after the human race is wiped out? And he's like,
you'll be taken care of.
That's all he said.
Yeah, and well, it's just like he says one thing to Godbrand when Godbrand confronts him about it. He says another thing to Carmilla. He tells Hector, "No, we'll just have a culling. We'll keep the surviving humans as like cattle." But then he turns around and tells Isaac, "No, we're going to wipe them all out."
Probably because he knows that Isaac doesn't like humans.
Mm-hmm. And he knows that Hector just doesn't really have the capacity to grasp the full extent of complete and total genocide. But it's just like, they don't really make it clear whether he's just telling them what they need to hear in order to maintain their loyalty to him, or if he literally doesn't have any clue what he's doing. And Alucard finally calls him out in their fight that it's just like, this has all been one long suicide note. And it's like you want to die.
It's like, Dad, you're just depressed, aren't you?
And the answer is yes.
And you see it too, where he's sitting there in his little study
in front of the fire, just sort of slumped in his chair.
And he's just like, I'm so tired. And you know, one of the things that they never showed, now that I think about it, his casket. You know, where does he sleep? What does it look like? Like, we saw the one that...
Maybe we'll see. Maybe we'll find that in Season 3.
Maybe.
Because Alucard's going to need a place to sleep now that he's... taken over the castle. But after the whole fight, the Episode 8 is basically just showing the aftermath. As Alucard basically says that his plan had originally been to go back to Gretchen, to go back to his vault and just go back to sleep. But the castle is basically stuck where it is. It's open to the world. There's all the knowledge and stuff in there that'll get plundered if he leaves it. So he's got to stay with the castle.
Well, plus Trevor tells him, he's like, you have your dad's knowledge right here. You have my family's knowledge down here, as above, so below. My childhood home, your childhood home. It's all yours. He's like,
I bequeath the Belmont hold to you.
And he's like, seriously? He's like, yep, it's all yours. Do as you wish with it.
Just make the world a better place, I think, is one of the things that he said.
What he was saying was, don't be your dad.
Yeah. It's like, because it's like the world's been fucked up enough thanks to your dad. We don't need you to add to it.
And now, then they literally pulled and I forgot that they did this for the last episode of Season 2, they did a Return of the King ending to it. Remember how Return of the King ended, where it kind of like jumped around a lot, you know, and it showed what various characters were doing, like Aragorn became king.
We saw that with Sypha and Trevor basically deciding, well, she's like, I want to go back to my caravan to at least pass on the knowledge of what I've seen to them, but she's got the adventuring bug now. She wants to keep traveling around with Trevor, and she basically says, "This was good for you too. Before when I met you, you stank of blood and stale beer." And
when you killed that monster just based off of pure luck, he was like,
that actually took a lot of skill. But she basically points out that it allowed him to grow as a person because he was finally doing what he was meant to do,
and that is basically do what like Simon and everybody
and
else.
He basically admits, you're the closest thing I've got to a friend. So he basically agrees to travel with her, and then we see what the villains are up to.
Mm-hmm.
Isaac gets accosted by a bunch of brigands who basically tell him to his face that they're planning to either sell him in the next town or eat him. And so he kills all of them, and then is like, I should have an army. And he just uses his Forge Master skills to bring them all back to life and turn them into fucking orcs.
Well, he turned like the one who had the scars on his face into an orc. Like, he legit looks like an orc from Lord of the Rings.
Based on the silhouettes that we saw with the others on the horses, it looked like they had sort of like the ears as well. They might also have been orcified, but not to the same extent as scars.
I was joking that because of the armor that the vampires were wearing, it looked like elvish armor. I was like, holy shit, this is Middle Earth.
and Isaac's going to turn into Saruman. Start making Uruk-hai. But then in Brayla, Carmilla's just like, want to go back to Styria, and she basically turns to Hector and is like, I'll take good care of you. Slaps a collar around his neck with a chain attached, and is like, the people in Wallachia are weakened. There's a power vacuum in the vampire world that I intend to fill, but to do that, I need an army. And you're going to help me make it. And then she beats the shit out of him until he agrees.
And then drags him, like she's riding a horse, and she's dragging him behind the horse. It's probably the worst part to stand, when it comes to horses, behind the horse, because you're either going to get shat on, pissed on, or kicked.
And she wouldn't care a goddamn second if it happened to him, unless he got kicked in the face and was killed, in which case then she'd be pissed off. But
and it basically ends with Alucard sitting in his childhood home after seeing like the ghostly form of Dracula walking down the stairs of the front of the castle. He goes and sits down
in the study.
Not in the study, that was his old bedroom.
No, that was the study.
Are you sure?
Because there was the portrait of his mother, just his mother, there. His room had the portrait of the three of them.
Okay, that's where I got confused.
Because there was the fireplace there. He stood up the chair, which got knocked over in the middle of the fight, and sat down in the chair and just started weeping.
Yeah, because he pictured himself as a kid. And then his mom, it was like a memory.
Yeah, just sort of, playing hide and go seek, or just sort of running around the castle, and she's chasing him as parents do when the kids are just running around.
And so he's reminiscing, and while he's doing this, I guess he comes to realization that my parents are dead.
Mm-hmm.
My mom was killed because of her trying to heal people through medicine, and my dad's dead because he wanted revenge for her death.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just sat there crying, and that's how this ends.
It's like the whole "you can't go home again" kind of thing. But there was also a quote just after they've killed Dracula, when Alucard is first beginning to... he's almost on the verge of breaking down because he's like, I just killed my father.
Yeah.
And Trevor basically says, you stop the war. And Sypha stops Trevor, but then says to Alucard, he's right, you saved countless lives, but it's all right to mourn the man.
Yeah.
And it's that sort of thing. It's like, yes, Dracula was an evil monster, but he was still Alucard's father. He still had a loving relationship with his parents.
Well, it makes you wonder what version of Dracula he saw growing up. Did he see a compassionate man who gave a shit about not just his wife, but his son, but like people?
I think he did, but he also probably also was aware of what his father had done in the past. I would bet Alucard heard that story about him slaughtering the merchants in that town.
Probably. And
probably a lot of the other shit that he did as well. Hell, he probably has also met a lot of those vampire generals. Just because Dracula never went to war doesn't mean those guys probably didn't swing by the castle to pay a visit to the ruler of all vampires.
Now let me ask you something. What do you think is going to happen in season 3?
Well,
what are your predictions?
Obviously, we're gonna see Carmilla and Hector forging their forces. Isaac, I think, won't get a whole lot of focus.
You think he's more of a season 4 villain?
I think we are going to see that he's up to something, but he's not necessarily going to factor into a whole lot in season 3. But they also but one of the other things Sypha mentioned when she basically said, I want to continue adventuring, is the church is still corrupt, and that needs to be dealt with.
Yeah. Because
she had firsthand experience with that, with how the church was treating the speakers. Granted, she did sort of comment that the speakers are the enemy of God.
Probably because
the reason she explained that was because of the whole Tower of Babel myth that she was talking about, with the whole linguistic conversation she had with Alucard, that Adamic was the original human language until the Tower of Babel happened, and because God did not want people to be able to communicate effectively to challenge him in that way. But what do the speakers do? They go around and they collect knowledge and to like share it with people.
And then she was just
and she was like, the speakers are the enemy of God. And then boom, boom, we hear like thundering from outside, which is just the Night Horde trying to break in. But at the same time, it's just sort of like, God's at the door and he's pissed.
My prediction for season 3 is that they're going to go the way of, I need to pull it up right here, Curse of Darkness. Because, like what I was saying, Hector is actually the hero character. Trevor is in it.
Hector is probably the more sympathetic of the Forge Masters.
Well, here's the
especially since he's now stuck literally under Carmilla's heel.
Well, hold on. Let me read you the plot for the game. It takes place 3 years after the events of Dracula's Curse, which is Castlevania 3. Well,
that's another thing, but, continue.
And Dracula's Curse continues, which, by the way, I think is also another thing that's going to...
that's what I was about to say, because when Dracula finally dies, when they stake him, behead him, and then set him on fire, there's basically that huge like cloud of pure evil that starts flowing out of the ashes.
It's like what I pointed out to you in the original game, when you kill Dracula, and then when Simon's Quest begins. Simon's Quest...
Castlevania 2, yeah.
Simon is cursed. Hence the reason why every single time it turns nighttime in that game, the little dialogue box pops up and it says, "What a terrible night for a curse." So
I had forgotten what game that was from, but yeah.
And
I knew it was a Castlevania, or felt like it was a Castlevania.
It's Castlevania.
But I couldn't remember which one it was.
I think that's going to be a benefactor in this, is that Dracula's Curse. It's not going to affect
the
Trevor
heroes
or anything. It's going to affect the land.
Yeah. Wallachia is going to be cursed now because of that.
But it's...
And of course there's still demons roaming around with
Carmilla.
Carmilla. Well, she's going to be going back to Styria. I imagine she'll mobilize in the latter half of season 3.
Possibly.
So she can start doing shit.
But anyway, so it says, though defeated by vampire hunter Trevor Belmont, Dracula's curse continues to ravage the European countryside, spreading disease, mob violence, and heresy in its wake. Amidst all this devastation is Hector, a devil forge master who had formerly worked under the employ of Dracula, but betrayed him sometime during the events of Dracula's curse.
There you go.
Eventually, growing disgusted with Dracula's brutal methods, Hector leaves Castlevania to live among humans, settling down to live a peaceful life. Tell me if this sounds familiar to you. When Hector's fiancée is accused of witchcraft and burned at the stake. He learns that her murder was directed by his fellow forge master, Isaac. Seeking revenge, Hector chases his former colleague back to his old home and back to the demonic life he believed he had left behind him. So, in the game, the playable characters is Hector and Trevor Belmont. The villains is Isaac and Zed. Zed looks an awful lot like that bald dude who had his eyeball whipped out. And Dracula, where it says, I'm reading this off the Castlevania wiki, where it says he left a horrible curse across Europe before being defeated, final boss of the game. So he does come back in the game. Yeah. Now, whether or not he comes back, maybe it's season 3, like they have to revive him.
I do feel like we are going to see a Hector versus Isaac fight at some point.
Possibly. I feel like Isaac is going to be turned into like a villain. Because he's like,
well, absolutely, he's going to be turned into a villain.
Whereas Hector is going to be like, wow,
forced to do it by Carmilla.
Yeah, so he's going to be forced to use his Forge Master skills by Carmilla to raise her an army. Instead of like what I just read, instead of Dracula, it's going to be Carmilla, who he, ends up not standing, can't stand anymore, and ends up finding some way to escape her.
And maybe then he joins up with the heroes because there's another army ravaging the world. Or maybe somehow when he sees what Carmilla's plans are, he comes to realize, I can't be a part of this whole genocide thing.
This is too messed up.
It's just like, I just wanted to live with my zombie pets on my farm, damn it.
But yeah, like I said, those are my predictions, that they're going to follow that game a little bit.
Probably.
They're going to have to make changes.
well, they always do for adaptations like this.
Yeah, but like I said, I think Hector is going to turn into one of the good guys. He's going to join Trevor,
and
Sypha,
then that's going to be how he ends up fighting Isaac, because by the time he joins up with the heroes, if only by convenience, Isaac will arrive with his own army of the undead and demons and monsters and shit, and is more ruthless than Carmilla was. Because Carmilla, while she just wants to rule the world, she doesn't plan on killing all humans because she recognizes that's stupid. We need to be able to eat. I don't want to live on pig's blood any more than Godbrand did, probably. And but Isaac, on the other hand, is whole hog behind kill them all.
Did you ever see that movie, The Little Vampire?
No, I didn't.
With Jonathan Lipnicki in it?
No.
The vampires in that lived off of cows. Guess what you see in that movie? Vampire cows. They got the red eyes, the fangs, they fly and everything. Did
you ever read Bunnicula?
No, but I'm familiar with the story.
Well, in Bunnicula, yeah, he just drains vegetables of their juices.
I remember
the thing is, well, yeah, but
I remember seeing the book covers from those old the things where you could order.
Yeah, the books through like school or whatever.
Yeah, and I remember just seeing
my mom was always like, you can only get one book from the catalog, and so I'd have to pour through it and see if there was anything I liked, and I'd be like, this is the one I want. My mom would sometimes order me other ones herself, but she's like, I only had the choice of ordering one specific book.
I got 3.
And I believe I got a few of the Bunnicula books.
I didn't get any of them, but I remember, because this is before I got into like horror movies and everything, I remember seeing the cover for it, and it was just a white rabbit with glowing red eyes, and he's surrounded by like lettuce and carrots and like stuff that rabbits typically eat. And so I wasn't really all that familiar with the story, but I know it was a vampire rabbit.
Instead of drinking blood, it eats vegetables.
Yeah. And then of course
the stories are kind of stupid, but it's but they're good for kids. They're family friendly vampire stories.
It's like I was at my aunt's house one night, and my mom's side of the family, they're the reason why I kind of got into horror movies. And, the story, the books and everything. And I was in elementary school at the time, and we're sitting there watching Aliens, of all movies. And I kind of like glanced to my right a little bit, and I looked down where her fireplace is, which was never lit. And it was like a toned down version of Dracula, is what I want to call it, because it was short. I have a copy of Dracula. And it's got, it's like the original way it was written. Mm-hmm. This was more of a simplified version.
Yeah.
Well, the cover for it looked like the Bela Lugosi Dracula. Mm-hmm. But if Bela Lugosi's Dracula came out today, where he's standing there, he's got like he's got one hand over his forearm. He's got the long nails. He's got the glowing red eyes. He's got the little trickle of blood coming down his mouth. Mm-hmm. And sitting right next to him is a black wolf with glowing red eyes also.
Because always.
Yeah. And I remember I picked that book up, and I know a lot of people probably are going to be like, how dare you do this while watching Aliens? I read the book.
Yeah.
So that kind of got me into that. Next thing I know, I'm reading all these, the other stories, and then years later, I ended up watching the old 1930s Universal monster films, Dracula, Dracula's daughter, son of Dracula, which is Alucard. So yeah, I've been
you've been watching horror movies for a while.
Yeah. Nothing beats the classics.
Of course.
I mean, you might look at them and be like, oh, these things look cheap as hell.
Yeah.
They're classics.
Yes.
They're classics.
And it was back in the early days of Hollywood before they really had a whole lot of, before they didn't always necessarily go in for, huge sets.
Well, like what I was saying to you was that when they were filming the original Dracula, actually, believe it or not, Nosferatu was supposed to be Dracula.
But they didn't have the rights.
No. Bram Stoker's wife said they could not call him Dracula. So they had to change the name to Count Orlok.
Kind of like why I said they didn't have the rights to the name.
So
yes.
I guarantee you, if Stoker was still alive when they were filming that movie, then they probably would have. But then I'm pretty sure we wouldn't have had the Bela Lugosi one. But anyways, when they were filming the Bela Lugosi Dracula, it was during the Great Depression, so they couldn't really build their own sets or use their own props.
They had to reuse stuff all the time.
They had to reuse the stuff from the stage play. Whether or not they had to reuse the costumes or not, I don't know. And you can tell, too, because at one point in time, I think it was, God damn it, I can't think of the dude's name, who goes to visit Dracula for him to sign the papers together.
Parker.
Yeah, thank you. He's, like, looking out of a window, and outside the window are a couple of bats. You could tell that there's somebody on the other side with like a fishing line, and he's just sitting there like bobbing them up and down. He's just like, oh, and passes out because, hey, bats.
Back, with that sort of quasi-Victorian sensitivity to horrible things.
But it's like if you look at like the quality of like all the ones that came out after that, it's like they just slowly started getting better. Probably one of the best ones was Frankenstein. Which, by the way, that's another monster I feel like they need to bring in, is because I swear Frankenstein is one of the bosses.
I do think so. Who knows? Maybe that's one of the things that one of the Forge Masters will make. Probably Hector, if I had to guess. Hector would probably make something like a Frankenstein, because Isaac is apparently going full bore and trying to turn the desert into Mordor. With the
I swear to God, if Season 3 shows him in one single tower with that forks, I'm going to lose my shit.
Oh, that would be freaking hilarious.
Because I'm going to be like, yep, they did it.
Uh-huh.
To quote Vegeta in the Death Battle, wow. What a ripoff!
Yeah, but I'm definitely looking forward to Season 3. We'll probably, like we said, probably do that next month at some point. Unless we can't get the schedules to sync up with other stuff, in which case, hey, we've still got Castlevania to do.
I mean, this could just be between the two of us.
Well, obviously it's just between the two of us, but I'm like, if the schedules with everybody else, with Zeke and Sam, don't ever sync up to allow us to get something recorded in time, then we've always got Castlevania. So.
Yeah, until we run out of that, then hey, Voltron, I guess, I don't know.
Voltron, I mean, there's tons of stuff on Netflix. I've got Hulu as well, and HBO Max because of that. There's the TNT app. I haven't been watching it live because I keep forgetting that it's on the air, but I can now watch it through TNT. Snowpiercer.
I do want to see that. I did watch the movie.
I've seen the movie too. I saw the movie in theaters, and it was. I like. All I'll say on it right now is I like because I've seen the first episode, but that's all I've seen.
Uh-huh.
I like how they've done a little bit more world building with regards to the train, to basically explain how the logistics of a 1,001 car train can work. But I won't say any more so that we can watch that ourselves later. But
I think Zeke might want to check that out too.
Yeah, Zeke.
He and I were talking about it.
Okay, then that can be a thing for the three of us. In between Gundam, the whole damn saga.
I mean, we're gonna need
breaks between.
Because like the original one, like what I was pointing out, was 42 episodes. Zeta is 50 episodes. So yeah, between those, like a break. Plus, again, the thing about me is that I need to buy them because I don't know any streaming services that have any of the older Gundam stuff on them. I need to buy them. I need to binge them myself to make sure the discs work because of an issue that I had with Seed Destiny. When I bought the Anime Legends set for that, when I was still living down in Richmond, to give you the time frame of when this happened, it was when Movie Stop still existed.
Yeah.
So it's been
that is a while. I barely even remember Movie Stop.
But yeah, that's something I need to do. I have the second collection. I started watching that yesterday. I'm only doing it, like I said, just to make sure that there's nothing wrong with the disc. Because
last thing we want to do is get part way into a binge and then realize, oh, this disc has some.
This disc has a defective in it,
and the audio is all messed up, or this episode doesn't play,
or the disc just doesn't work.
Exactly. So. I'm fine with you doing that to make sure that sort of thing works. But yeah. So anyway, we've got tons of plans for more stuff on the Bingecast. Besides, obviously, you and I will finish Castlevania. We've got My Hero Academia still to do. We've got to finish off the rest of Mobile Suit Gundam. And tons of other stuff on the list. Because how many pages is that list now?
Last I checked, it was still one, but hey, the notes on Facebook, they don't really give you pages like
yeah, that's the thing. But
Word has.
It's long. It's long. We've got dozens of stuff.
We still need to start. We need to start doing movies.
I agree. So we'll figure something. We'll figure something out.
I know what we can.
Maybe we could start with Snowpiercer, the movie, with you, me, and Zeke, before we jump into the show,
so we can compare.
Exactly.
Okay.
So you guys, so Zeke especially can then appreciate the additional lengths they went to develop things for the purposes of.
Because I know it's based off a book, right?
It's based off a comic book.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought it was a book.
I think it's. I want to say it was a French comic book, but I can't be certain.
Possibly. But anyways, yeah. No, there's something that I need to get at my dad's house the next time I go down.
Well, which is going to be next week, isn't it?
Yeah, I'll be gone the 9th and the 10th. So if you want to gather the rest of the troops and do whatever, go right ahead.
So we may do that because I'm still not working next week, so I've got plenty of time.
But no, there's a particular movie franchise that you told me that you have not really seen, and because I know you want to do this whole thing like in order of like release date, but I need to pick up a certain movie set that I have down in Richmond,
and that is
Bond.
Ah, yes.
I have every single movie all the way up.
I have seen Dr. No, and I've seen one or two of the others pre-Brosnan. Pierce Brosnan.
I know, but I'm trying to think.
But Pierce Brosnan is where I sort of first started really watching the movies as they came out.
For me, it was Dalton.
But regardless, it's like that's one of those. It's a series that I feel like we should definitely tackle as part of. In fact, I think it was one of the first things I mentioned when we were first discussing the whole concept of the Bingecast, that we can do movies as well, but we just do one movie at a time. So.
Well, yeah, maybe like one a month.
Yeah, that works. But yeah, starting with the James Bond series, because it's a long runner. There's plenty out there. But if you've got a box set, that's great.
I have the...
that saves us the trouble of trying to track down its streaming service.
Well, I have the 50th anniversary set. The set, when I got it, it came with every single one of the older James Bond films. And in the set, it leads all the way up to... not Casino Royale. Quantum of Solace. And it had a blank slot in it for...
when Skyfall was going to come out.
So it leads all the way up to that and has a little slot for when you buy...
Now, of course, there's two more that you'd have to add to it with
I could just get...
Spectre and No Time to Die.
When No Time to Die comes out in November.
Hopefully by that point, things will have calmed down and movie theaters are finally open again. Because I definitely want to see it... I feel like I need to see it on a big screen.
You do.
And while I have a nice big ass TV, it's not the same thing as seeing on a giant ass movie screen.
No, nothing can compare.
But at any rate, we should wrap this up. So definitely like season 2. We're both looking forward to season 3 and seeing where the story's going to go from here.
I'm definitely going in blind because I don't know why, but I just never watched season 3 when it first came out. So hey, this is the perfect opportunity to do so.
Yep, there we go. But we've got plenty more coming out and other stuff. We have another Ramblecast planned. We'll probably record that tomorrow.
If work doesn't hold again.
We'll be talking about shared universes. And I'm working on another blog post to put up on my blog for my Gamer Drivel series, where I basically talk about game ideas I'd like to see made.
Yes, the one that we discussed was Arkham Beyond.
Yes, I'm still working on that. Should hopefully get that done tonight or tomorrow. But At any rate, that about wraps it up for this episode of the Bingecast. For Chris, I'm Jay, and we'll see you when we do our next binge. 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 When we do our next binge.